My guest today is Mark Davis, band director at Forest High School in Forest, Mississippi. Mark and I met in the early 1980s when I think that was it, when he was a
Yes.
student at Ole Miss and I was a graduate teaching assistant trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And welcome, Mark, and thanks for being here in the middle of a busy halftime season.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Jim.
So tell me about your early education, Mark, and how you ended up being a band director and when you began playing an instrument.
Well, I grew up in between two small towns of Bruce and Water Valley, about 30 miles south of Oxford.
Yep.
Did all my schooling at Bruce Elementary, middle school, high school. And in that time, I started band in fifth grade. And my director was in the process of trying to build a program. And myself and about four or five others, we marched in the high school band as sixth graders.
Yep.
Now, nowadays, the governing body, Mississippi High School Activities Association, has a policy not allowing anyone to march younger than seventh grade.
Yep.
So somewhere along the way that got changed. But through my band experience of middle school and high school there at Bruce, I developed a enjoyment and attachment to music. Little small town band. Bruce is still what's considered in Mississippi a 2A school, and commonly marches eighth graders and sometimes seventh graders, I guess. I haven't kept up recently in the varsity band, but through that experience, we played some really good music and I got attached to it. Also, during spring break, that was back in the day when in Mississippi, for our state rating, we did concert, sight reading, and marching all in the
All
same
in
day.
the same day, right?
You had grown up in that system and where you went to school in Jackson. Um, and I just got attached to the system. I thought band was such a cool thing. And the system changed as I think in the late 80s, 87, 88, where marching in the spring was moved to marching in the fall. But through that time, we played some really good music in my high school band, very, very difficult tunes for a small school or a small program. It was common to play Kenneth Alford marches
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
for us. My 4 years in high school, 3 of the 4 years, we took to State Festival a Kenneth Alford march. The one that wasn't a Kenneth Alford march was one called British Eighth.
Oh, I remember that tune, Zoe Elliott.
That's right. I think that was my junior year. And it's amazing that I remember some little details like that.
Yeah, it is. I understand completely. When you were talking about uh, the all day thing, with marching, sight reading, and concert all in the same day, I was remembering going to Clinton, I think, for the concert portion and to the stadium in Jackson for the marching portion that evening. Now, what was your instrument, Mark?
Well, I started as a cornet player. In about seventh or eighth grade, I moved to baritone and I was probably a better fit for a larger mouthpiece.
Yeah.
And in my 10th grade year, middle of my 10th grade year, my director asked me would I consider playing tuba. He had had to show a tuba player the door, and that opportunity presented itself. And at that time, I had a pretty good idea of that I wanted to be a music ed major in school, and so I jumped at the opportunity. So by the time I finished high school, I was on my third instrument, and one of the big things that did for me is it forced me to read bass clef, and
Sure.
I had not done that at the time.
Who was your director, Mark, in high school?
Man's name is William Sherrill Bailey, and he went by Sherrill. He taught about 34 years in Mississippi, and after teaching at Bruce 18 or so years, moved to Winona and finished his career there.
A big city
Yes,
compared to Bruce.
yes. But he was an awesome small town band director.
Yeah.
He had a knack for pulling kids in and working with them and pulling kids together for a common goal.
Hey, that's the name of the tune, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So where was your first teaching position?
Eupora High School, which is between Winona and Starkville. There, if you go straight west out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and stay on the main drag, you'll drive right through Eupora.
Yep, sure will, whether you want to or not.
That's right. Well, now there's a bypass.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're moving up in the world.
Can you tell me the logistics of your band program at Forest now? Number of kids, all that sort of stuff?
We have in the high school band, we have about 85, give or take a few, depending on who I might have kind of encouraged to find the door or brought in. Let me back up and just say our high school consists of, in grades 9 through 12, about 460 students, and the makeup of which is 48% Hispanic.
You know, for some reason, I was thinking Forest was a little bigger than that. How big is the town?
The town, and that's one reason I spoke with the mayor at last night's ball game. She said about 5,800 residents in town. She said we probably have actually some more, but when the Census Bureau comes around, some people don't answer the door.
I don't blame them. And probably in a town like that, more people are related than not.
That is correct. And there's a county school district outside of Forest. Forest is a municipal district. It's a small version of an inner city school. And in the county district, and we play some of those in football and in sports. What I always say is half of my band kids are related to half of their band kids.
Yeah, that's about right. You know,
And
the
some
good thing about it is there is no doubt as to who to call when you have an issue or a problem with a student.
That's true. You can call somebody that they're related to.
So, uh, how many beginners, Mark, do you start each year?
It's been the past few years, it's been somewhere between 30 and 40.
That's not a bad number at all compared to the size of the high school. So, do you have an assistant?
I have an assistant, have had an assistant for 6 years, and have been fortunate to add a second assistant this year currently.
And that's great. That's great that you have that kind of support from the administration.
It's definitely there.
Well, wonderful. What's your retention rate? Say when you start about 40 beginners, how many of them stick with you through until their senior year?
Currently, it's been 15 or so.
That's about average, I think, for
Ye-
retention rate. How do you recruit beginners?
Well, we have at our middle school, we also have them as fifth graders in what they call a music rotation. In the fifth grade classes, um, they go to something different each day for their activity time. They'll go,
Specials.
they'll go to library one day,
Yeah.
go to go to computer, go to the gym for PE, and go to the band room for music. And so we have the opportunity, especially second semester, to hone in on some kids that might have musical ability. We can go ahead and do instrument tryouts with fifth graders. We have them buzz mouthpieces and that sort of thing. So that's where we are with that, and it gives us with that fifth grade rotation, it gives us a good opportunity to meet with those kids, get to know them a little bit, and know, hey, here's a kid we might want to have in band next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you use your high school students to help recruit?
Haven't been able to do that as much as we would like. Um, just due to the fact that the campuses are a few miles apart, they're on
Okay.
schedules. The middle school is on a 7 period school day. The high school has gone to a 4 by 4, not four, an AB block schedule.
I used to hate that. My goodness, it was hard for me to keep up with. I can't imagine how difficult it was for students.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it myself.
Well, it also cuts into your participation numbers, doesn't it?
A little bit. The schedule has been as such that we've still been able, I still have kids in high school band that are on the cheerleading squad.
Yeah.
Um, the only fall sport that band kids can do is cross country, and simply because that's just all after school.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in a small school, there's always competition for student participation.
Yes, that is correct. We have kids that, in addition to cheer, I think I've got a couple of volleyball players.
Yeah.
And spring sports, I'll have more band kids participate in other things. I have, especially with the high percentage of Hispanic students, I have quite a number of students that play soccer.
Oh my. Yeah.
Some are the guys that play soccer. We pretty much lose them second semester just due to scheduling. Girls that play soccer, I can't tell you what the schedule is, but we're able to keep most of our girls soccer players.
Good. Good. So, do you write your own marching drills, Mark?
Absolutely not. with with today's style of doing things, it's nothing that I can do. Um, I did that about my first 2 or 3 years out at Upora,
Yeah.
and then after that, I've been fortunate to be at places where I've had funding available that I can pay someone else to do it, who writes often, who is good at it, and writes for not just my program, but I'll say at least a half a dozen other band directors or more.
Yeah. What does it cost for a drill design?
Well, most guys that write that, and I say guys, there's some ladies that do that too. Um, they charge by the dot on the page.
Ah,
Uh, some charge, let's say $15 a dot is a average price nowadays. I've started out paying as low as $10 per dot on the page. So if you've got $10 per dot on the page and you put 60 kids on the field, then you're roughly going to pay $600 for a marching show. Now that's cheap nowadays.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
in in recent years, it's been more for the entire season. It's been much more like $1,000, give or take.
yeah. Do you do you get the music with the drill?
No, I now some directors can hire a program coordinator kind of
Right.
guy and they arrange or they obtain tunes somehow and obtain the copyrights to it, which is another story, and provide music and drill. I usually purchase my music, and in recent years, or every year I've been at Forest, by the way, Forest is spelled with one R. Um,
Oh, that's right. I remember seeing the sign in the shrubs outside the exit off of I-20.
yes, that's correct. So, um, um, but I got off the beaten path there. Since I've been at Forest, I've purchased all of my music from Randall Standridge Publishing Company. And Randall's a former band director living over in the Jonesboro, Arkansas area, and has arranged a number of shows. And a number of people in our state use his music in his shows.
Do do your drill designers promise not to sell to anybody close to you?
No, what they do is um, they strictly have their own line of customers. And the guy that I use is a former band director who's retired, and all he does is write drill and stuff. And he lives in the Hattiesburg area, and he he has a good radius of people that he writes for. And some are near me, but there's nothing similar. Occasionally, you might see a similar drill move if you sit at a marching festival and watch a handful of bands, and two or three of them are Mike's customers.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what's the basic outline of your marching shows? I don't
Um,
know, most of us went back when I was teaching band, we would do an opener and then either a drum solo followed by a majorette feature or turn it around, and then do a third tune, maybe a flag feature or something like that, and then end with a closer and the fight song off the field.
well, that's kind of gone by the wayside, or at least it has in Mississippi. The show that we are doing this year is called Phoenix Rising, and it's basically Randall's arrangement of the Firebird music.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It has in the opener, it has four small movements: beginnings, growth, renewal, something like that. And I'll say this: Randall is a percussion person himself, and so he is in a number of his arrangements writes little drum breaks in them, which is a common thing for a selection to have a 6 to 8 measure drum break in it, but not have an actual percussion feature like we did back in the day when you're talking about.
okay. Do you have majorettes?
No, I do not.
That sort of seems to have transitioned out also, doesn't it?
Yes, it has. Occasionally we'll run into at a marching festival, we'll see a band that does have majorettes, but it's not as common nowadays.
That's unfortunate. I think some of the best recruiters that I ever had for beginner students were the majorettes because you had to be able to play an instrument and march with the band for at least 1 year before you could try out for majorette. And every girl in sixth grade they began band with the intention of becoming a majorette. Now, most of them sort of, you know, fell by the wayside as far as twirling goes, but boy, those were some big time important people in the school.
Yes, yes,
Well, uh, you said you picked the music for your group.
yes.
What criteria do you use?
Well, for one, at the end of each semester, we have students play what we call pass-offs as uh, part of their 9-week grade.
Right,
And so we get a chance to hear every student play. And so based on the ability of the students, we pick grade 2, 2.5, 3, or whatever we feel might fit.
right.
This show selection that I have this year, I think is either grade 2 or 2.5, 2.5.
Yeah,
And
pretty standard, I think.
and so through the course of a few summer rehearsals, the kids were able to get the music under their fingers fairly quickly and I think we did a good half a dozen music rehearsals over the summer before we loaded up and went off to band camp.
Do you stay with one show for the entire season?
Yes. And the first game, we marched the first two movements. A week or so later, we added the third. Last night we marched and played the fourth movement for the first time.
What's the time limit on bands at halftime?
I believe it's 7 to 9 minutes on a judged show.
Yeah,
Uh, Now, last night, both bands had their full shows on. And nowadays, we have all this electronics and techno equipment on the
oh,
sideline.
goodness gracious.
Yes, and um, so you got to plug it in. You got to make sure all your programs are up and running. So it takes a couple of minutes to get started. By the time the host band, we were the visiting band last night. We did our full show and got off pretty quick. By the time the hometown band got on last night and did his show, the clock operator had stopped the clock or added 2 minutes to it, so it would be adequate enough. And both teams had come back out Each team was at each end zone doing their pre-second half warm-ups by the time the host band finished. This time of year forward, that's a common thing.
Sure, sure. And I have seen the home band get a 5 yard penalty for delay of game by going too long.
That's right. That occasionally happens. Most officiating crews are pretty considerate in that schools want to let all their groups and their students show off their work and play it for mom and dad in the stands. And it's rare, but that has happened from time to time.
Yeah, yeah. Now, tell me what kind of community service opportunities your students have, like, doing homecoming parade or Christmas parade or Veterans Day programs, that sort of thing.
We have a Veterans Day program at our high school that the Beta Club usually puts on, and the band is always asked to make a contribution. This year, I've been asked to have a small group, as the stage at our school doesn't fit a full-size band anymore. So I've been asked to have a small group come on stage and play the Star Spangled Banner. At times, someone's been asked to play taps.
Yep.
Um, Probably let's see, this is 2024. In 2014, the band was a lot smaller and you could get the entire band on the stage. And so maybe there was another tune besides Star Spangled Banner, since you had all the band kids there. But we're usually asked to make a contribution to the Veterans Day program. We march in the Christmas parade, and that's a chance that the people in town get to see our band program that don't ordinarily come to Forest High School football games. And it's usually an opportunity to make a good impression. I tell the students that there are people in the community that will base their opinion of Forest High School on how they see the band in the Christmas parade.
Well, you're exactly right.
May not see you but 5 minutes or less, but their opinion is based on what the band does in the parade.
I think you're right about that. I also think those types of activities are pretty important. Community service is probably something not a lot of kids think about, but townspeople certainly do.
Yes, yes, that's right. And there are, as you're aware of, with your friend D.P. Hawkins being a Forest High graduate, there's a long time band tradition in Forest.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there are numerous residents in town who were in band themselves back in the day when they were in high school. And so they, even though the demographics and the band looks different from it the way it did way back when in their glory days, they still want to see it do well.
Sure.
And they pay attention to what the band does. I have a good bit of band support in the city of Forest from alumni.
You know, it's always surprising to me at how many kids actually go through a band program in a small town and are sort of your secret silent supporters. And you
Yes.
may not realize some of the support that they provide, but it's certainly there. Uh, what do you tell parents that your goals for your students are?
My goal for my students is to teach them music, help them learn to be a better musician. And in the process, we hope to teach your child to be a better person. Your child will be prepared to go out into the world, communicate with people, and have an opportunity to be successful. Once they leave high school, if they'd like to go to college, well, they can get some band scholarship money. At our local community colleges in Mississippi, there, as you're aware, there are full-size band programs with football teams, sports teams, so forth. And at our local community college, East Central in Decatur, Mississippi, and most community colleges around the state, band students can go and get full tuition. It varies from one junior college to the other, but a lot of them can get tuition, dorm room, books, or a meal plan or something like that. So there's an opportunity for kids to pursue their education through the opportunities that band presents. The other thing I try to tell parents is your child's going to learn how to be part of a group that pulls together, works toward common goals, and learning how to get along with others that are different from them.
And you know, that's probably one of the more important things that we sometimes fail to publicize is that everybody in marching band or concert band participates.
Yeah,
There's no sitting on the sidelines. There's no first team or second team.
that's right.
That everybody plays, regardless of their skills. But
It's on the first team.
even the students that are not the greatest musicians might be the ones that sell the most band candy,
That's
or they
right.
might be the ones that load up the trailer with all the percussion and tuba equipment, you know, and everybody contributes in their own way. And it's important to recognize that, you know, little Susie might not be the greatest trumpet player in the world, but she has other gifts that she provides and contributes through.
That's right. Um, uh, and we have much the same here at Forest. We do a little bit of fundraising. Our Band Booster Club has the concession stand at the home football games, the home side and the visitor side.
Good.
They're able to set that up. That's our biggest fundraiser. I'm fortunate in Forest in that we do get some budget from the school district. It's not a ton of money, but it's enough that we can pay for repair on some equipment, and we can make some what we call big ticket item purchases each year. We use the budget sparingly during the year, and at the end of the year, we take what we've got left and go, okay, what's a real need here? What's
Right.
a large instrument need that we could spend a lump sum of money on and make it a wise purchase for the future?
What does a tuba cost now, Mark?
Oh my goodness. $4,000 is a good price. Um, Back when COVID hit, our school district managed to get some COVID money, and I was able to spend some of it. I looked at the price on a Yamaha metal sousaphone, and it was more like $8,000.
Golly.
Yes, we're with tubas, the concert tubas. One of the best purchases you can do, best buy for the money nowadays is there's a business called the Tuba Exchange, and they sell a brand called St. Petersburg. They're rotary valve tubas, which I'm not a big fan of for high school kids, but their price is the best buy for the money. And I think as of a couple of years ago, 4,000 for a concert recording tuba is a good price. For the case alone is 250, $350 or more.
That's
So it's band instrument items are like everything, they're out of sight. It's
sure.
ridiculous.
Sure. Now, what other instruments does your program provide for students?
Well, mallet percussion instruments for one. We've got a 3.5 octave marimba, a 2.5 octave xylophone, a nice bell set, um, a decent gong, a good concert bass drum.
Yep.
Uh, that's that we can roll in and out and get where we need it to go. A number of things like that that we've been fortunate to be able to purchase in recent years. And of course, nowadays, with the electronics stuff on the sideline, we've been able to purchase electric pianos, synthesizers, whatever you want to call it, um, a control board with its up to 4 or 5 mic channels and so forth. We've had cordless mics for soloists and so forth on the field. So we're able to provide some good things like that, some quality things for the kids to use. But we also, when you do that, you have to school the kids on taking care of it.
Exactly right.
We've got it. These are long-term purchases. We want these items to last the program a long time, but here's what we've got to do to make that happen.
How old are your timpani?
There is no telling. I have four timpani, uh, 26, 29, 30, maybe a 20. I can't remember, but we've got four. And they were probably used back when our friend D.P. Hawkins was in the band in the late 60s, early 70s, and they still work.
Sure.
One thing that has made them work is we don't take them outside. Some
Excellent.
some band directors do. I wouldn't. We've even gotten to the point where we choose music for our Christmas concert that we can do without timpani, so we won't have to worry about transporting them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Nowadays, when you mentioned timpani, chimes is another item.
uh-huh.
We have chimes in our band hall. Well, luckily, these new electric keyboard instruments we've purchased have all sorts of features on them where if we want to use timpani or chime sounds outside on the field, all we've got to do is kind of plug in a number, hit a key, and lo and behold, there it is.
That beats transporting your timpani and beating them to pieces in the back of a van or back of a U-Haul.
And having them fall apart in a parking lot.
Yeah, that's right. Now, what about instruments like French horns, oboes, and bassoons?
I don't have any oboe and bassoon players, even though I've been encouraged to start them. French horns, with a little bit of COVID money, I purchased some of the marching variety.
Yeah,
And nowadays, here lately, we have some Con 6Ds. Seems like there's a Yamaha in the crowd. There's been some wise purchasing along the way. One thing that I've found on those instruments is, and I've looked at prices on newer models, and I've gotten from repair businesses the message that, hey, you can buy name brand, and I won't call a name brand out, but other than to say King, Holton, Farkas, Yamaha, some of those brands are all good and traditionally have been good over the years. But hey, Mr. Davis, the workmanship on those aren't what they were 30 years ago.
yeah, I can imagine.
So I have found that being able to take my school budget money, invest it in the repair of an old Con 6D that
Oh,
I've got
yeah,
that I've got a better playing, more durable instrument than if I bought that new model that's nice and shiny and the kids love to play it. Luckily, we've been able to keep ours in good playing condition, and I have a good French horn section.
oh man, that's a blessing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It
It's
always seemed to me that your first year of French horn was the guy that moved in the middle of the school year.
once kids in Forest commit to band, there's been very little movement. It it has a what I would call a fringe of transient students and families, but not a lot.
Yeah,
We're more likely to get students in during a school year. And the challenge for our administrators is a number of those kids come into our public school district and they don't speak English.
right, right. I can imagine that problem. Now,
The-
Mark, tell me if you have any advice for aspiring or new band directors.
Ask all sorts of questions and ask people that have been in the business a long time. A lot of times, I find younger band directors communicate really good with other young band directors, but they're hesitant to pick up the phone and call an older guy that's been doing it a number of years. So don't hesitate to ask the old guys, hey, you may have done different back in your day of start when you were my age, but what advice would you have for me now? How would you handle this issue? So
Exactly.
find a mentor in the profession, whether it's your old high school band director, whether it's some guy from down the road, whether it's some guy such as yourself who's a state or two away. But get on the phone with somebody and ask questions.
That's great advice. Mark, I appreciate you talking to me this morning. And I I enjoy listening to people that teach in small towns because that's sort of, as far as I'm concerned, the backbone of music in America. and I appreciate you being here this morning. And I hope you have a great weekend.